Okay, please excuse my horrible camera technique. The doll was way too big to film while the camera's on a tripod, so I just had to take the camera off the tripod and just move it by hand. But at least you see how the doll looks before I start on it. So for this video, I repainted this beautiful Disney Animators Elena doll. And I gotta say, I really liked the Animators dolls, like more than I thought. I didn't hate them or anything like that, I just didn't think I ever crave more of these dolls. So starting the face up, I first removed the face, and I usually like removing the face, but the paint was so thick on her eyes. So it was more like removing a thick layer of acrylics or nail polish. And it wasn't at all like normal dolls, like Monster High dolls. I wasn't able to remove all of it either, but the stuff that wasn't removed was gonna get covered up anyway. You can see later in the video that the eyebrows that were on the doll are still there, but I was able to cover it up with the new eyebrows. So for the lips and the really small corners of the eyes, I did have to use my exact knife to get into them. And the knife was broken, so I wasn't really worried of cutting her up or scratching her. So starting the face up, I sealed the doll a few times with Liquitex matte medium that I apply with an airbrush. And I started applying the pastels, but I had a few problems. Since the doll is so big, I wasn't able to get an even coat of the sealant. So it had quite a lot of problems sticking to the doll. It does get a lot better with the more layers I add. And I did actually use new pastels this time, since when I was in Paris I also picked up some Mungyu soft pastels, and they work really well. Also the chair I'm on is really noisy, so I'm sorry if you hear that. I can't do anything about it. I mean, I could get another chair, but that requires effort. So I added some dark brown as a shade to her eyelids, and I started covering up those eyebrow stains with some new eyebrows, before sealing one more time. Mixing all my colors, I use this ceramic plate, because it's so easy to clean off. I can even use acrylics and I can easily just get it off. Keep jumping back and forth between the pencils and the pastels. Just keep building up more colors. And I added some blush to her ears since I had completely forgotten about them. And after another seal, I noticed that the face was slightly shiny. And I don't really know why, but it wasn't sticky or anything. I did add some more pastels to try and tone it down a bit. And the finished doll is also slightly shiny, but it's not as bad as it was. When all my sketches were done, I went in with my watercolor pencils again. But this time I applied them with a wet brush to pick up even more pigment. But unlike Monster High dolls, this doll is quite big, so it was really hard to get an even color like this. So I just got out my gouache paints instead. And I really don't like using acrylic paints on my doll, because I feel like I'm committing to something. And gouache paints are so much easier to clean up if you make a mistake. And they're kind of like the child between watercolors and acrylics. Like they're water-based and behave similar to watercolors when thinned out. But at the same time they have the opacity of acrylics. And behaves a lot like those when not thinned as much. And it's a lot easier to get an even surface and get rid of streaks than acrylic paints. But the downside is that they're easily activated with water, so whenever I apply the final gloss, I have to be super careful to not smudge it. After sealing the doll again, it got even more shiny. So I don't know what happened, but I just kept going and added some hairs to the eyebrows using black and brown pencils. I also added some more blush to the bottom of her eye and built up her lip and eyeshadow color a little bit more. The brown eyelashes didn't really look that good to me on this doll since everything was so even in color. So I just painted some black instead to give a bit more variation in shades. Instead of just using flat colors in the eye like I do with my Monster High dolls and other repaints, I added some pastels instead to give them a more softer and blended look. And then comes painting the iris. I kept holding my breath when painting it in, but I didn't make any mistakes this time. And painting in the highlights really makes the doll look finished in a way. because it's not really, but it really helps. And they're super fun to add too. And for the shade in her eye, I mixed a gray and blue pastels together. And this time you can really notice the difference between the Mungyu soft pastels and my old pastel chalks. Because these ones really stuck to my fingers. But now that the painting part is done, it's time for my favorite part. Just adding all the glitters. I have these diamond-shaped iridescent ones that I use for all my dolls. And they really add a nice extra highlight. And they're slightly translucent, so when the light isn't reflecting on them, they're not really there. But when I do shine them, they get this green, pink tone sometimes, mostly green. But it's really nice, and I really like them, and I'm probably never gonna stop using them. I also added these tiny pink hearts to her eyes that are also iridescent, but these ones are opaque and a bit more. And I added a bit more of the diamond-shaped ones. The lashes are usually super hard for me to do, but here I had a really nice surface to glue them on. I didn't really know if I should add them on or not, but I just decided to add them. Once the glue was dry, I started to gloss the eyes, and I really prefer doing this after the eyelashes are on, because then the gloss can work as a little extra glue to keep the lashes in place. And I did also trim the inner lashes a little. And after all of that, she's done! And not having any major problems with the sealant or anything was really nice for a change. And if you wanted to see more of my dolls, please consider subscribing to my channel. And maybe even follow me on Instagram, where I post even more dolls.